Hospital reporters' pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. This is another UFO Disclosure video, which I wasn't going to make. I was going to sort of cover this in a live stream tomorrow afternoon, but I thought, well, you know, if I do this now, it kind of saves me doing a long lead-off tomorrow, and I can spend the time in discussion with you guys in the chat box. But I'm basically sitting here waiting for the report. It's like being a kid waiting for Santa to arrive or something like that, isn't it? I've actually got to interview someone at 7 p.m, which is in about 50 minutes. That's on a completely different thing for her Panwo Radio. Well, it is related because we're going to talk about aliens, but it's a guy called Jon Stewart, not the comedian who did the Wuhan joke, somebody else. But anyway, that's at 7 p.m. my time. You might even, if you pitched me on Skype earlier, I'll go in earlier. But anyway, I just thought I'd let you know, just checking out the news. I got the page open here. Let me just see if I can show you. If I do this, you're probably going to be able to see it. How do I do this? There we go. Alright, so you can probably see now, this is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Just make sure the porn tabs are all shut. Seeing some screen sharing, yes. That's it, that's what you're seeing. There's nothing on here, it's just press releases, DNI, Haynes statement on Senate confirmation, Chris Fons, there's nothing here about that on the Office of the DNI, so I'll just go to the BBC News. Hancock broke social distance. Oh, I'm furious about that, but that's your headline. Matt Hancock has bloody, it's something we complained about a year ago, and now suddenly they're doing something about it. A bit like Fauci, isn't it? Have a look at the sidebar here of all the various different news stories. Nothing here. I'll go to World News, US, Canada, and there's this big bit. This building has collapsed in Miami, and that has caused a lot of headlines now because a large number of people were in the building and they have to be dug out. And 4 are confirmed dead. Nothing here about UFOs. There was something on MSN about it last night. Alright, I'll just stop the screen sharing. There we are. There was something on MSN about it last night. I remember, but let's just see if that's still there. I'll have a look before I screen share. Again, when you screen, you've got to be very careful. There's nothing embarrassing on your screen, on your monitor display, because it doesn't have to be celebrity XXX bedroom cams or blackwivesmatter.com or anything like that. It could be just something else. You know, this is a blessing. Mind you, remember that? I still don't know if that was deliberate. No, it's not there now, but last night they were talking about UFOs. There was going to be a UFO. Anyway, here's another here's another little article I saw shared on Twitter by a friend. I'll just show you that. Oops, no. There we go. The UFO Trap by The Atlantic by Sarah Scholes. So I'll stop. I won't screen share the whole thing, but there we go. I'll just go through this because this is quite interesting. Whenever UFOs make the news, I don't know if that's her voice, standards of skepticism start to slip. Oh, Steve Mumbling will love this. There we go. Steve Mumbling will absolutely adore this. UFOs can be fun. See the official sign on the road near Area 51, which dubs it the extraterrestrial highway. That's true, but you see, the changing Highway 375 to the extraterrestrial highway was a decision made by the Nevada government. Because basically through negotiations with the tourist board, because they are exploiting their notoriety with Area 51 for their own prosperity, and nothing wrong with that. If you remember my thing about Stratford-on-Avon, you're going to get rid of Shakespeare. If not, then shut up about these Roswell and these areas exploiting their history for their own prosperity. UFOs can be weird. Yeah, that's true. See E.T. phoning home with a MacGyvered communication device. That's a movie, Sarah. But UFOs are also a national security story, a government contracting story, a conspiracy culture story, and a techno-scientific story. They are a human story. That's true, yes, they are all those things. This month, the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the Secretary of Defence, is supposed to submit a report on unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah, today, in fact. Although, I mean, to be fair, like, I'm just looking at the time, it's now just gone 6:15 in the evening, which means it's actually Central Time, which is the guy I've got to talk to. It's 12 hours. He's on Central Time, so I've got this open on World Clock. But it's actually just gone 1:15 midday. If you go to another place, I'll right-click and open a new page, actually, because I want to keep this one open. And you go, say, to Eastern Time, which is like Washington. I'm going to click Washington, D.C. It's actually just coming up to 1:20 in the afternoon. So they're probably still sleeping off their hangover. You know what these Yanks are like. No offence to my American listeners. If you go to like Los Angeles, it's actually only 10 in the morning. That's where Gareth Davis is. So yeah. So you've got to give him a chance. Anyway, that's a digression. I'm still waiting here anyway. This is a kind of Vigil, this set of videos. Anyway, I'll upload it later this evening when I've, once I've given up on all the waiting. This is the UAP is a polite acronym for UFOs. That's right. Funny enough, as I've explained before, UFOs was originally a polite euphemism for flying saucer. It was the Robertson panel in 1952 that basically invented the term UFO, which we loonies have culturally appropriated. And so they now need an official non-crazy version of UFO without all this societal baggage. And so they chose UAP. And guess what? We're all culturally appropriating that as well. Look at new ufologists are all saying UAP now, aren't they? UFO Jesus. No one gets crazier than him. That's a compliment, by the way, Ryan. He's saying UAP. See, they're going to have to think of something new now, aren't they? To two congressional committees. That's right. Senate Intelligence Committee, and I can't remember the other one. But there's also the Director of National Intelligence who's dealing with it. This government report, the kind of tedious document most people usually ignore, has fanned UFO fervour. Well, it may not be tedious, you see. You can find it behind a glossy New Yorker cover and the tick-ticks of 60 Minutes, among the pages of the New York Times and Political Co. Almost everywhere, yes. This has never happened before. Not even in the 1940s flap. If this spike in UFO interest plays out like the previous ones, there are no spikes in UFO interest like the previous ones. This one is exceptional. Anyway, as journalists tackle what people usually perceive as an unserious topic, standards will sag. What, really? Why? Already, some coverage has lacked the nuance that the current evidence warrants. If anything, with the exception of the New York Times, most media outlets are have done the exact opposite. They have completely thrown nuance out, and they're kind of flailing around in the dark. And they're not addressing the current evidence. They're not even discussing it. UFOs, so fun, so weird. Well, that's a very serious matter, I think. Have left many journalists saying, wow, really? To power. Reporters have taken sources at their word without corroborating data, let documented contradictions slide by, and glossed over the motivations of both outside agitators and government insiders. There's an element of truth about that, actually. Taking sources at their word. Well, it depends. I mean, most of the reporters are the ones that are quoted are actually, they've quoted people like the witnesses, Sean Cahill, David Fravor, Alex Dietrich, etc., who, they're simply witness testimony. There's nothing wrong with just taking them at their word because it's witness testimony. It's backed up now by other things. I mean, there's probably going to be more. There's a lot to back it up. Obviously, Sean Cahill was actually on the USS Princeton, and in a sense, he's a witness to the electronic support measures and radar and things like that were used to co-detect what was seen by the witnesses. As John Brennan said, sometimes there's satellite data as well. But contradictions slide. Well, what are you see? They've also interviewed Mick West as well. To be fair, they've got Michael Shermer on as well. All the skeptics have been given their platform. There's nothing wrong with that. But what are the documented contradictions that maybe Sarah will explain? Now this is interesting. The motivations of both agitators and government insiders. That's probably true, actually. Although maybe not in the way she makes it. It's actually we ufologists who've been the best at dealing with this. But because we have experience with this, we've integrated the concept in our minds. We can deal with this better than most of the mainstream media. Reports of UFOs always come with a dearth of information. Well, not enough. Usually, yeah. Does dearth mean an abundance or a lack? I'll just look up dearth. Hang on. I should know this, being a man of letters. Dearth. A scarcity. All right, a scarcity. Well, yeah, that's true. There has been there's been these little snippets that have come out, the gun camera footage and things like that. But there's obviously so much more, which has been kept back. Right now, we need to weigh what little we have carefully and stick to the standards of skepticism that we apply to anything else. You guys in the mainstream media. I'm not addressing you specifically, Ms. Scholes, but generally the mainstream media is what are some of the most credulous people imaginable and some of the most deceptive. Again, nothing personal against this report. I'm just saying that's. She then quotes Battlestar Galactica. Oh, God, I'm not going to read that out because that's the new series of Battlestar Galactica is crap compared to the old one. Anyway. The UFO in modern form, says Kate Dortch, a historian of science at the University of Pennsylvania, is a phenomenon of the post-war era. No, in its modern form, yes, but the UFOs, obviously, as I've explained before, there are cave paintings with UFOs and aliens in them. They've always been around. A time of technological military wonders. Submarines, jets, planes, missiles, computers, and, of course, the bomb. Never before has humanity been able to so immediately and questionably destroy itself. Stop splitting infinitives. Dorsch told me. In the midst of this high-tech fear in 1947, a pilot named Kenneth Arnold spotted 9 objects he couldn't identify, flying over Washington State at seemingly fantastic speeds. Yeah, but I suppose that was the beginning of the Cold War, the threat of the nuclear terror and things like that. So maybe the modern UFO phenomenon emerged out of that particular situation. But obviously the Arnold sighting was something that people had always seen. So for some reason Kenneth Arnold became a cause celeb when this was just the most recent. It was just happened to be the most recent example of the time of other things that have happened. In the same way, Betty and Barney Hill were not the first alien abductees, but they popularized the idea of alien abduction. The United States military worried that the objects were a Russian threat. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, what's changed, eh? Yeah. Of course, that, from a military strategic point of view, that's understandable, yeah. I mean, although now they're basically saying, at least Senator Heinrich basically said, and several others have commented, that these actually are unlikely to be from Russia or China. In other words, they're not from. They don't match what is known through other sources, intelligence sources such as human intelligence, espionage, about what the capabilities are of other nations. And when other ufological observations soon followed, it started Project Sign, a UFO government program launched into Project Grudge and then the more famous Project Blue Book. But UFOs have never been a central preoccupation of military officials, Greg Egigian, a historian at Pennsylvania State University, told me. Militaries have typically very quickly come to the conclusion that this stuff does not pose a threat to national security. It's interesting, that they do that. Yet then they carry on investigating them. Project Blue Book ran for, and its forerunners, Sign and Grudge, ran for over 20 years. A lot of money was spent on it. A lot of people, Hynek and other people, working on it. At some point, I mean, the Robertson panel then convened in '69 and decided there was nothing to see here, move along. Basically the same line they're giving out now. Then in 2011, the White House lied and said they weren't interested in UFOs and hadn't been since Blue Book. Then the truth about ATIP comes out. So for something that they have, that has never been a preoccupation of military officials, they spent an awful lot of money and an awful lot of time working on it, haven't they? News organisations, too, have treated UFOs lightly. Yeah, official ridicule and denial. It was the policy in the Twining memo. That was back in '47. First head of the CIA, Admiral Roscoe Hillencutter, told General Nathan Twining, we know these things are real, but the public mustn't be alarmed, so we must treat it in the media through official ridicule and denial. It was a policy that lasted 70 years until 2017. In a 2019 American journalism article, the communications scholar Philip Hutchison, any relation to John, and the journalism professor emeritus Herbert Strentz analysed UFO coverage from 1947 to 1967. Back then, Strentz says, much of the coverage was of individual reports published in local papers. That would go out on most of the wires to the rest of the country. Newsrooms might initially write them off as flimsy and unsubstantiated, but then a juicy report would drop off somewhere else in the country, and the local news barriers and news judgment would drop the gates and now welcome previously rejected reports and join the fun, Strentz says. So they're basically saying the media sensationalised various UFO reports that shouldn't have been. There may be some truth to that, actually. Sometimes they do like novelty pieces. And indeed, that fits in with the instructions of the Twining memo, doesn't it? If you highlight evidentially weak cases, that assists with the cover-up. I mean, Hynek would have loved this, because he would have said, he died a few years ago, but he would have said that this is the whole point. Because by the end of his career, he'd worked out not only that UFOs were real, but there was a cover-up going on, and that his own organisation and his own work was being used to facilitate that. Just like in the TV series, which I love so much, and I can't wait for Series 3. Come on, guys, let's come and make it. The researchers found out by looking at the body of mid-century coverage as a whole, and then when judged against the professional standards of that era, UFO coverage was often superficial, redundant, silly, and poorly coordinated. Yes, it was, deliberately. But silliness wouldn't have sat well with some of the people closest to the military's UFO programs. After his work on those military investigations concluded, one of the project's leaders wrote a book, in part, about the lack of resources and support dedicated to the military UFO research. Okay, we've got a hyperlink here. What is it? I bet it's Hynek. No, it's Ruppelt. Oh, well, he's just as good. The Report on UFOs by Edward J. Ruppelt. Yeah, this is... Ruppelt is just as good. He was Hynek's boss. And he supported him. He backed him up, whereas the previous manager didn't. You know, he was eventually replaced, though. Ruppelt. They brought in someone who wasn't as good. Hynek complained about his next boss. Anyway, a similar sequence of events can be observed in recent times. Drone technology is newishly proliferating. Yeah. Drones are drones, UFOs are... Yeah. If sometimes you might see a drone and can't identify it, it's a UFO. Yeah. Great power competition is back in fashion, and former Defense Department employee Luis Elizondo emerged in 2017 and began telling reporters he had run a UFO research program whose implications the Pentagon didn't grasp. How is it that the narrative hasn't changed in 70 years, Dorsch thought when she first heard that news. That's true. I mean, as I said, I was listening to General John Samford talk, the famous press conference. You've probably seen it, it's very well known, where he laid out basically the very same line that's come from the leak of the UAPTF report today. Which, if it's true, it's disappointing. As I said at the time, 70 years, more than 70 years now, millions of pounds spent. Who else in the world? What parallel is there for this? Where you put in so much money and effort into something, and make so little progress in 75 years. Only Wales's World Cup runs. That's all I can think of. It seems odd. I mean, the idea that there's nothing to see and move along just doesn't fit, does it? Something's there. That maybe they're making progress and they're keeping the progress classified. You know, it's maybe just something as simple as that. Anyway. The 21st century version of this saga began arguably later in 2017 when the New York Times published a story about the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program. Yeah, I think it was literally because I mean, we in the UFO community heard earlier, but you know, the December publication of that year was when it really went viral. The private contractor that carried it out and 2 Navy videos featuring UAP. The Times story set off a round of breathless coverage of the government's tacit interest, wink, in UFOs. If these stories didn't outright say the word aliens, many indulged in what-ifing while glazing over the limits of the actual facts available. And many included same sources, played mostly the same footage in the same essential story. Well, I think what this reporter is saying is that the media was a bit too quick to assume these were something extraterrestrial when the facts did not justify that. Now, in my own analysis of this, from what I can see, is the exact opposite. Most of the media doesn't know how to deal with this. Some of it did. The New York Times was very good, basically because they had Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal on board. Leslie Kean she's already written a massive book about UFOs. Officials go on the record. In a sense, as I explained before, no one is mentioning the A word when really, even if it cannot be proven, there's enough reason now to say for it to be quite complete common sense to state. You don't have to use the A word if you don't want. You don't have to say aliens, but you can say. Well, the way I would word it, if I was one of their spin doctors for Biden and his team, way I would word it, I would say we now have really overwhelming evidence that we're dealing with an artifact, artificial objects of non-human construction. You just word it like that: artificial objects of non-human construction. That's AONHC. AONHC. That will replace UFO, won't it? AONHCs. Yes, that will replace UAP. So UAP, we can have UAP. They'll let us have that term. That's our word now, and they can have AONHCs. Oh, right, okay. At this point, the fact that a Pentagon program called the ATIP, just talks this. She gives a brief outline of ATIP. Beyond that, some of the key details are still contested, in flux, or remarkably, detailed. Question marks that a lot of coverage skips over entirely or treats with a light touch. What do you mean by that? Hang on. Some key details are still contested. Yeah, well, there is a lack of information because we're just basically getting glimpses of what's really going on. We are really trying to make the best of what we've got. And believe me, the UFO community has done a much better job than most of the mainstream media. We really have. With the exception of the New York Times, we're way ahead of any of them. Elizondo, for instance, is widely credited in the media as ATIP's director. The Pentagon has said that he has had no assigned responsibilities for the program. Elizondo recently filed a complaint with the Department of Defense's Office of Inspector General, claiming a coordinated plan to discredit him for speaking out. Why is that not feasible? They admit that ATIP existed when people beforehand were saying that maybe Elizondo might have made it up, and to be honest, it was possible he had. John Greenwald in his initial assessment said that, and he was right to say that. Later on, the Pentagon then admitted there had been an ATIP. But Elizondo had nothing to do with it. Elizondo's now contesting that. Why wouldn't they? Considering what he's done, why wouldn't they try to discredit him? Because he's gone way beyond anything that's come out of the official line. He's gone way beyond the official line, hasn't he? The Pentagon also once asserted that ATIP did not research UFOs. Now it says that the program sometimes uses UFO reports in pursuit of broader weapons research goals, but emphasizes that the examination of UAP observations was not the purpose of ATIP, according to the statement I received. Well, Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program that doesn't identify advanced aerial threats. So why was it given that name? You know, they do. I mean, the UFO reports to pursue broader weapons research goals. What's that mean? Pursuit of broader weapons research goals. Well, I suppose, to me, if I'm interpreting this correctly, that simply means that they're examining them as potential threats, which is fair enough. You don't know what they are, they're a potential threat. I mean, Stephen Greer makes a big deal about them using the word threat and says, oh, why do they use it? It's because they want to shoot them. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It doesn't necessarily mean they want to shoot them. But it does mean they are doing their job as military strategists of trying to draw up contingency plans just in case. Doesn't mean that they want to shoot them, it's just they don't know what they are yet. Neither the Pentagon nor Elizondo has provided enough evidence to back up a definitive account, says John Greenwald, the founder of the Black Vault. Oh yeah, John Greenwald. Yeah, I just mentioned him, yeah. A depository of declassified government documents. Greenwald has filed scores of Freedom of Information Act requests related to ATIP and for more historical UFO-centric documents, and has produced a book about the government's documented dealings with the topic. And he recently received documentation via FOIA suggesting the Pentagon could have deleted, as a matter of course, Elizondo's email records, which might have helped resolve at least some of the contradictions. So there's kind of a... It's not implausible that they would do that. I mean, Elizondo's investigating now. He's got Danny Sheehan on his side now. I hope it does come out. If they've done that. Obviously, they want to say something. They are in a position where they either forced or wish to allow the public more information, but at the same time, they're saying to Elizondo, sort of like rushing ahead, and they're saying, "Lou, come back, not so fast." It could be something like that. A story that takes this muddiness, and so the topic, seriously will mention such conflicts and complications. It might also mention the more down-to-earth hypotheses for videos and images. Well, this thing is, they have talked about more down-to-earth hypotheses, and a lot of them are now being honest enough to admit that they don't fit. The more down-to-earth hypotheses don't fit for the videos and images. Mick West has now got a lot of criticism. There's a lot of people coming out and criticising him. He's always had his people who have tried to debunk what he said. Same with Thunderfoot, Phil Mason. Now there's some former pilots coming out and saying, look, this is just simply not true. Or the fact that the Pentagon's definition of UAP, according to the spokesman Susan Goff, is simply an aerial phenomenon that cannot immediately be identified. That immediately could be doing a lot of work. Well, exactly. Well, that's what it means, doesn't it? And Susan Goff, that's a name I'm familiar with, because do you remember, she's the one who was like throwing obstacles in the way and putting up the screens. Do you remember she was putting up the screens when Anthony Bralalia was investigating the materials evidence? Do you remember that sort of thing? He got through the FOIA. I talked about that on a previous video in this series. She was the one who put the screens up, Other coverage has dug into the origins of ATIP, the connections among the long-term paranormal enthusiasm of major players, and the money involved in the form of political donations, a private UFO research and entertainment company. All right, they're talking about Bigelow. There's a hyperlink here. I'll just click it and see what it says. New Republic. Oh, we go. How Washington got hooked on flying saucers. Oh, dear. I'm not going to read that now. I'm not going to read that now. No, I don't want notifications. Okay. See this article. Where is it? What article? Hang on. See an article that includes none of that information. Clicker beware. Many UFO stories accept what serious people say on faith, falling prey to an appeal to authority, like the pilots. Like, come on. They're just telling you what they saw. They're just telling you what they experienced. But all the news is doing is reporting them. Taking the person's identity as evidence that their claim is true. Well, from what I can see, they're just doing their job in that respect. They are allowing people like David Fravor to just report what they saw. Consider, for example, the 60 Minutes segment on UAP in which the host Bill Whitaker interviews Christopher Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. So it's not us, that's one thing we know. Yeah, says Mellon, meaning that certain UFOs spotted by military personnel were not US technology. But is that true? Is that where the evidence leads? In which case, what else is Christopher Mellon supposed to say? Is he supposed to say, well, we don't know, it might be one of ours, even though all our information indicates it's not. But we don't want to say it's not, because that leads to other questions, which may lead to aliens. Is he supposed to say that? We know that, Whitaker asked. I can say with a high degree of confidence, in part because of the positions I held in the department, I know the process, Mellon responded. And the segment moved on. What's wrong? There's nothing really wrong journalistically with that particular segment. They asked him what he knew, and he said. He just said it's because of what I know. Of course, he didn't say he didn't give any further information, which would be, well, I'm briefed into some of the secret aviation projects, and none of this matches. Yeah. Scrutinizing such details is complicated, and it takes time. It's much easier to stop at fun and weird, and in the case of the current rhetoric, spooky scary. And keeping it simple makes for a better story in the traditional sense of the word. Journalists, Agigian said, are interested in finding a way to make everything come together in a nice, neat bundle. Nuance is often a victim of that process. Well, as I said, I don't think that's what they're not really treating this as maybe they're tempted to treat it as a novelty piece in some way, but they're not getting to grips with it. I think this is something that this reporter Sarah Scholes doesn't quite understand. They're doing this because they're not getting to grips with the serious nature of it. But keeping the nuance could lead to investigations of bigger questions and more context. People have seen classified aircraft in the past and concluded they'd witnessed a UFO. And they are doing that now? Yeah, of course. Here we go. CIA's role in the study of UFOs. Okay, that's I'm just clicking a hyperlink there. Talking about a threat that can result in funding. Who would benefit from that? Why are one-time insiders coming forward? Why did the Pentagon release those videos in 2020? And why is the new report coming now? This has come out quite a lot, that this is some kind of trick to justify budget allocations. I think it's got to be something far more wide-reaching than that. If you want to if you want to justify budget allocations, you can probably come up with something more mundane. I mean, the government have been doing that for a long time. The US has by far the biggest military producer and consumer on Earth, and has never had any problem justifying that. There's always some kind of threat, usually of a more down-to-earth variety they can come up with. It seems a bit weird that they would come up with aliens simply for no other reason than to make money. That didn't quite fit. These questions and potential answers merit serious coverage. So do UAP themselves. Yeah, that's it. I think when we mean serious coverage, we should report them in a sense the way the UFO community is reporting on them, as unidentified but possibly of non-human construction. See, I've already explained why I think that is common sense, not just based on my own personal beliefs, but simply through logic. After all, unidentified regularly zipping into US airspace would be a real national security problem. Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's why the US it continues to spend a vast amount of money and a lot of effort in looking into them. It's not just, well, we're just sort of like examining them a little bit, just to see what they are, just in case, man. We've been doing it for 75 years. We spent millions of dollars, but, they're not really there. It's not really we don't know what they are. We can most of them are swamp gas and weather balloons, and there's a few we can't. Well, they would be if we could look at them. And these sort of like these vagaries, these sort of mumblings you get from the US government on this issue, make it very clear that they are concealing their true motives. This is essentially an excuse. It's an excuse to create things such as Project Blue Book and ATIP. And the UAPTF. Let's not forget that. That's the modern incarnation of this particular project that's been running now since Roswell and Kenneth Arnold. Indeed, it goes back much further. In Italy, Mussolini had a UFO desk and things like that. There was the ghost rockets in Sweden. This has been an ongoing problem now for the best part of a century in terms of defending airspace. Yeah, and if they really can, as Marco Rubio said, and indeed the analysts and the witnesses to the Rendlesham Forest incident, if they can come close to nuclear weapons facilities, then yes, that is a potential threat. The forthcoming report is an opportunity for journalists and the broader public to question both the government and those who question the government, to stare down at available data and make a logical, justifiable conclusions, even if that means accepting that they actually won't be conclusive, as early coverage based on the anonymous word of officials who've been briefed on reports' findings. Yeah, this is the leak that I talked about previously. Yeah. The US finds no evidence of alien technology, but can't rule it out either. Oh, God, it's the New York Times, and it's behind a paywall. Why is this behind a paywall now? Oh, it doesn't matter, I've read it already, but that's annoying. That's usually the way it goes with UFOs, whose allure persists through the objects themselves, though the objects themselves, whatever they are, always disappear. Well, the disappearance is part of the allure. Aircraft can't disappear. Ships can't disappear. Well, forget the Philadelphia experiment. They can't just disappear. When a Geigian thinks about UFOs, he often considers the difference between riddles and mysteries. Riddles are puzzles that can be solved. Mysteries are meant to remain as such. You just constantly revisit them like scripture, for new inspiration, for new messages and understandings, he said. I don't know, this Geigian guy's a Yorkshireman. That was just the first accent that came into my head. That's, I think, making a little bit of a slur against people who investigate these sorts of things, revisiting them like scripture for new inspiration. No, this is a riddle, not a mystery. This is something that I believe has a solution, and we should try and find that solution. If it doesn't, if it's possible we can't find a solution, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We don't know whether it has a solution or not. But it's certainly not just something we wallow in, like you would do scripture, the mysteries of faith, etc. No. And he carries on. For a lot of people, UFOs are mysterious, and they need to stay mysterious, and they will. Oh, that's what. Now I understand the accent. I've made him sound like Dr. David Clarke. That's it. Yeah. For a lot of people, UFOs are mysterious, need to stay mysterious, and they will. Yeah. It's Dr. Folklore, Sheffield Hallam University. All right. Well, that wasn't a particularly enlightening article, I must say, but they made some good points. She made a few good points here. The Atlantic, it's great. Let's going to refresh the DNI page now. Press release. No, it's just nothing new. It's just this thing here. Recent news. I'll just share the display with you. Here you go. Recent news. Blah blah blah. Reports and publications. Women in Afghanistan. Okay, press releases, and that's Day and I Haynes. Speeches and interviews. Avril Haines, yes, he's the latest DNI. Biden's news articles. No, that's it. Okay, so let's go back to see what's in BBC News. Anything new? It's still hand on cock again. He's still there. What's this? Scientists hailed discovery of a dragon man. Oh my God, it's the Queen. All right. I don't want to go off topic here. World. Missing them. What's it? George. That's sentence. George Floyd, ex-police officer, to be sentenced. I'll deal with that another time. U.S. Canada. It's 159 people in that Miami building. Oh, I'm very sorry that happened. It's awful. As you can see, there's a big pile of rubble. I don't want to take advantage of this tragedy, but that's the pile of rubble you didn't see at the World Trade Center. Just to make you notice. And this is, as you can see. Oh, look, see. There's the pile of rubble. 55 apartments. Oh dear, poor people. All right, so I'll leave that now. And I'll add some more when something of interest emerges. Okay, guys, well, something a bit interesting has just appeared. Let me just find it. This tweet has just come out. Let me just, I'll open it, I'll get the tweet out properly. Here we go. All right, this is from someone called Kelly Mayer. The White House has been briefed on the UAP report. And the Black Vault, bless him, has replied immediately underneath, do you know what time they were briefed, and was the White House briefed, or was President Biden briefed? Yeah. Kelly Mayer says, I'm trying to get clarification. So far, just White House. Right, I don't know who Kelly Mayer is. She's got a blue check mark, or tick as we call them in the US. Washington correspondent, Nexstar Media Group, covering Congress and White House. Right. Okay, so that's interesting. That's all we've had so far. I've been looking at the news. It's all about George Floyd, or the Derek Chauvin, who's just been sentenced. And it's partly that, and it's partly Hancock, of course, and the tower collapse in Miami. That's the three main headlines at the moment. Obviously, if we are going to get some kind of disclosure event, or semi-disclosure event, or even like some kind of report, it's dropping on a very bad day. There's a lot of news here that's going to bury it. big stories. But in the meantime, what's happened? I've also come across a very good article here. I'll just show you it. There we just show you a bit of it there. See, this is by Bryce Zabel on his website. On the trail of the saucers, UFOs are going through a phase. I'll just have a read through of this because this is quite good. I don't know. Right, I've met Bryce Zabel. I'm not going to try and do his voice. On the eve of the memorable, we hope, UAP report to Congress, a system has revealed itself so we can figure out where we are in the game and how long it may take for a robust disclosure. He's literally just posted this recently. I saw it on his tweet. I actually retweeted it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have already seen this. The UAP report to Congress is due to drop any minute now. There have been leaks to the New York Times, rampant speculation, most of it trying to tamp down expectations, and classified briefings prepping senators for what's to come. We won't know what's in the report until we see the report. It will likely be less than we hope for, more than nothing, and most readers will be at least vaguely satisfied. Depends on what you need to be satisfied. Over at the Trail of the Sources on Twitter, we asked people what expectations they had, and the results have been predictable. So here we are. Bryce laid out a poll here. 4 options. Here we go. The UAP report will be released this week. Describe your level of expectations. And there's 4 options. Groundbreaking, limited truth, outright deception, and who knows. The answers were, the poll came back as following. Groundbreaking, 5.3%. Limited truth, 59.2%. Outright deception, 12.8%. Who knows, 22.7%. I'd probably, obviously limited truth won by a large margin. I would have probably chosen that myself, either that or who knows. Probably limited truth. And he says here, the winner by the mile is limited truth. People seem to have their hopes up for something and their expectations in check. It seems clear at this point, this is Bryce talking again, there are basically going to be 4 phases in America that have to be, and probably the rest of the world, I would say, Bryce, that have to be gone through until we get to the point of an actual disclosure that UFOs are exotic technology and are from somewhere that isn't here. Phase 1, they're real. Phase 2, we don't make them. Phase 3, China and Russia don't make them either. Phase 4, do the maths. Or math, as they say in America. So phase 1, they're real. And he says here, it's taken us 74 years. Happy birthday, Kenneth Arnold sighting, to arrive here. Well, the Twining memo may have confined this at the end of 1947 Summer of Saucers. It was not public. Recently, however, the Department of Defense and U.S. Navy, not to mention members of the, members of the U.S. intelligence community and Presidents Clinton and Obama, have all more or less made this statement. Something is out there. Doesn't mean it's ET, we are reminded, but the things our pilots and radar keep seeing and picking up are something authentic. Phase 2, we don't make them. This is the most recent phase, and the one the UAP report is apt to put down in writing. It was part of that New York Times leak, and more of our officials seem to be saying it, ranging from Senator Marco Rubio to the former DNI John Ratcliffe. They're real, but they're not ours. Now, this is me talking now. That's what I think is very obvious. I think this is something that could have been said back in 1947, actually, and wasn't. Then, unless, as I've said before, this is some kind of massive deception. I made this point in a previous video. These are things actually made, as Alien Scientist said. He's worth checking him out on YouTube, actually. Made by Lockheed Martin and Grumman and these other military-industrial complex outlets. And it's all to do with just fooling us, making us think they're aliens when they're not, for reasons that I've explained, the last card, etc. Phase 3. China and Russia don't make them either. Bryce says here, we're not here yet by any stretch. In fact, it seems more than likely that this is where the UAP report leaves us. Clearly, this is what those insiders were rallying past. The New York Times and even 60 Minutes. It's also the dodge that the Rubios and others use to make sure they don't sound crazy, talking about aliens, but instead look like public servants who are interested in national security and are hoping against hope that we have not been technologically leapfrogged by our adversaries. Me talking now. Well, they have kind of said that. I mean, Martin Heinrich, another senator, basically said that in basically the interview he had on the street. They are still skirting around it a bit, but they are making it obvious that they don't think these are foreign adversarial, as they say. As I've explained, they have espionage, they have human intelligence in the form of espionage. This has been going on since time immemorial. It's true that sometimes nations can make a technological advance on other nations. We saw this in the Cold War, where the Soviets and the Americans were continuously trying to outdo each other in terms of their own science, in terms of espionage. This is why, certainly at the beginning of the space race, the USSR gained a significant technological advantage over the Americans by putting the first rocket up there, putting the first man in space, etc., etc. But this is something very different. This is something involving, as David Fravor says, aircraft without visible propulsion systems or methods of lift. No wings, no rotors, no envelope, no control surfaces. Things which can accelerate very fast, much faster than any structure we know of can, because it doesn't seem to be affected by inertia. Things like that. Now, we for that, as I said before, that'll be rather like us being Stone Age people in New Guinea compared to modern Western city dwellers. It's like, you may have seen the videos of people going into these areas and showing these people mobile phones and the the New Guineans, they just look at them curiously. All they see is some kind of object with lights on making noises. Things like that. So that's kind of the situation we're in now. That's not conceivable, I believe, that there is any human institution with that level of advancement, apart from maybe the breakaway civilization or the deep state, in which case, by showing itself the way it is, as I've said before, they're doing it for a particular reason. It's some kind of psychological operation leading perhaps to the fake alien invasion, as I've said before. And phase 4, this is Bryce talking now, phase 4, do the math, or maths as we British people say. Yup, this is the Holy Grail, and we can be quite sure that the UAP report, short of an absolute stunning reversal, will not go there. That's me talking again. Yeah, I mean, I know that now this guy on Twitter, this bloke on Facebook's he said something really stupid recently. Where is it? Oh, like people do sometimes say stupid things on Facebook. This is a guy I'm always getting into arguments with. I don't dislike him. He's not a bad guy. But he is. He just says some ridiculous things sometimes. Here we go. Where is it? Oh, I've got you. Oh, I should have prepared this. Sorry, but it's There we go. What's my most recent one? Right. This bloke says, "I've always said the wheat from the chaff, but I completely agree." This is with somebody previously. Somebody previously was quoting Grant Cameron about the real UFO, the real UAP mystery waiting to be solved is how carefully we separate the nuts from the bolts. And until some people within ufology take that on board and accept that the vast majority of what is seen is identifiable, they will never get anywhere. So this person essentially completely misrepresenting ufology. I said in reply to him here, we must move in very different social circles because I know hardly anybody in ufology who does not accept that. So this guy is essentially saying ufologists generally just don't realise, some of these things are not alien spaceships, There's just, some of them are not alien spaceships. Why don't they realise that? Why does it take skeptics like me to point these things out? What planet is this guy on? Either he is deliberately misrepresenting ufology for convenience, the way Steve Mumbling does, or he's just really doesn't understand us. As I said, I don't dislike this guy. I've interacted with him many times, but anyway, I'll let Bryce carry on. At some point, however, whether it takes to congressional hearings or fact-finding commissions or sustained investigative reporting, at some point China and Russia are going to be ruled in or ruled out. Well, this is me talking again. I think they've already been ruled out, haven't they? Bryce again. So far, the people in the know who speak out seem to be ruling out our adversaries. Me again, correct. That's exactly what's been happening. It's like I said before, they're skirting around it. No one wants to be the first one to say the A word. They're just saying, "Oh, it's not this, it's not that." It's like these annoying people. You want to go out to the town and you say to them, "Well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go to which pub should we go to then?" "Oh, I don't mind anyone really." "Okay, should we go to the Black Lion?" "No, I don't like the Black Lion." "Okay, should we go to the King's Arms?" No, I don't like the King's Arms." "Okay, should we go to the Queen's Arms?" "No, I don't like the Queen's Arms." "Should we go to the Dog and Duck?" "No, I don't like the Dog and Duck." And you go through a whole list of pubs. No, I don't want to go there. It's like that. And in the end, they say, "Well, where do you want to go then?" "Oh, I don't mind." It's like that. They want to. They know they have to communicate this information, but they don't want to do it explicitly. They're scared to do it explicitly. And there's as I said, there are deep cultural, psychological, and political reasons for that, which go right back to the beginnings of the truth embargo, the way people's minds have been conditioned, the way the political world order has been formed. That's why all these forces are now converging on this entire issue, like laser beams, and people are responding the way they've been programmed. Bryce continues. Think about it. UFOs going back to 1947. Well, me again. Earlier, Bryce. Earlier than that. Bryce again. have been showing off some capabilities, the same capabilities that the ones we are seeing now. China or Russia did not put these UFOs from the 1940s, 50s, 60s and 70s in the air. If they're real, if we don't make them, if other nations don't make them, then somebody else does. Might not be might not be ET, might be something stranger. Ultra-terrestrials, time travelers, a simulation of reality, whatever. We are currently at Phase 1. The UAP report is probably going to escalate us to Phase 2. The next months or years will be devoted to sorting out Phase 3. Sometime in the 2020s, we're going to get to Phase 4. People who know about such things probably believe that this slow, steady rollout is the best way to avoid War of the Worlds panic. War of the Worlds style panic. We'll be like that frog in the jar as the temperature slowly raised, who never jumps out. One day we'll be able to look around and wonder why it took us so long. Yeah. That's an interesting article. I have to disagree with it. I don't think we're at Phase 2. I think we are at Phase 3 now already. Or to all intents and purposes, we are at Phase 3. At least, like, if we were not at Phase 3, then we'd still have people seriously considering that these are foreign adversarial. These are simply China or Russia. China and Russia usually get blamed because they're the two other superpowers. But other nations might get blamed for this. However, no one is seriously suggesting it. As you know, as Gary Heseltine, I interviewed him the other day, and we were talking about this. Biden's just done like a summit with President Putin. They went to, I think it was in Geneva, and they had a conversation. It was as good a conversation, as close to as a conversation you can get with Joe Biden. But God knows what Putin thinks of him, honestly, and America. But that's not really. I mean, this didn't come up. There was no discussion of it. There was no issue raised about the fact that things which they believe come from that country are invading US airspace on a regular level. I mean, look what Russia did when they believed that a British warship sailed through. A British warship supposedly sailed through their territorial waters. And they sent aircraft up to harass it. They claimed they dropped warning shot bombs and fired warning shots and things like that. Yet this didn't come up at any point in the G7 or here at all. Or Biden's summit with Putin. So Bryce, we're well on to Phase 3 now. We really are. We're well on to Phase 3. That's an interesting article. I have retweeted it if anyone wants to have a look at it. Let's have a look at see if Kelly Mayer has said anything else. Just refresh her a minute. Oh, here we go. 5 seconds ago. All right, this is look, she tweeted 6 minutes ago. No link yet. Heads up, just watching. 7 minutes ago. Now I'm told the UAP report is being released now. Okay, here we go. This is at Marco Rubio's statement on UAP report. Let me just I'll just share screen. Hang on a sec. There we go. Calls the report an important first step. Adds the Defense Department and intelligence community have a lot of work to do before we can actually understand whether these aerial threats present a serious national security concern. Okay, I'm just going to retweet that. Thank you, Kelly. Let's have a look at Marco Rubio. Let's have a look at old Fat Dracula. What has he got to say? Pin tweet. Oh, this is nothing. Surfside. Don't know what that means. Oh, of course it's the pop. Oh, of course he's going to be very much. He is going to be very much involved with the building collapse in Florida. Yeah, and yeah, it's all his tweets are about that. So it's understandable. That's understandable. As I said, this is a bad day to drop news because there's so much more being buried. That's it. Okay, guys. I'll just check the BBC, see what's there. George Floyd killer sentenced to 22 years. Hancock broke social distance guidance with the age. And again, Miami collapse rises to 159. It's those three stories are dominating at the moment. I'll go to World. I mean, going to World doesn't really help because US-Canada, the US-Canada page is again, it doesn't mention Hancock. I don't think people really want to talk about him much, but we've got Derek Chauvin sentenced to 22 years and 159 missing in Miami. Yeah, that's it. So we won't know anymore. Obviously, this lady, Kelly Meyer, maybe she's got access to some inside information other people don't have. But we'll keep going on. We'll keep doing it. Now I'm actually waiting to interview a guy. I'm waiting for this guy John Stewart. And at some point I'm going to have to break off my Vigil and interview him. We are going to talk about aliens though, so it'll be interesting. And he'll be on her panel radio in a week or two, and then I'll get back to it. But I will let you know. I'll keep you posted. Soon as something of interest comes about, you will hear about it. First, live and exclusive on Hapanwo TV. Well, everybody, it's here. I've just been away for an hour and a half recording John Stewart. I come off the phone, and sure enough, Kelly has dropped the full details here, dropped a link to the full details, and here it is. Okay, everyone, drum roll. And here it is. This is what we've been waiting for. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Preliminary Assessment Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, 25th of June 2021. And it is 9 pages. Oh, my goodness me. All right, well, the first one's the cover anyway, so let's have a look. Scope and assumptions. All right, this preliminary report is provided by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. In response to I'll do that voice. In response to the provision in Senate Report 116223 and accompanying the Intelligence Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2021, blah-de-blah, consultation with Secretary of Defense is to submit an intelligence assessment threat posed by UAP, blah-de-blah-de-blah. I'll tell you what, I'll switch off the screen cap while I'm doing that. Has made in understanding this threat and the progress the Department of Defense Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force has made in understanding this threat. This report provides an overview for policymakers, that's my bureaucratic voice, of the challenges associated with characterizing potential threats posed by UAP, while also providing a means to develop relevant processes, policies, blah-de-blah, training, blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah, so as to enhance the intelligence community's ability to understand that threat. The director of the UAPTF is the accountable official for ensuring the timely collection and consolidation of data on UAP. The data set described in this report is currently limited primarily to US government reporting of incidents occurring from October 2004 to March 2021. That's a long time. Data continues to be collected and analysed. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. There's some credits here. Assumptions. Various forms of sensors that register UAP generally operate correctly and capture enough real data to allow initial assessments, but some UAP may be attributable to sensor anomalies. All right, that's interesting. They're saying that some mistakes have been made. Well, that's to be expected. Okay, page 3. Executive summary. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on UAP hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature of UAP. The limited amount of high-quality reporting. What are you talking about? You got the best sensors in the world: sonar, radar, electronic support measures, all kinds of gun cameras that can pick up at all wavelengths and frequencies and amplitudes of light. So there's a lack of high-quality reporting. That's interesting, because Project Blue Book said something like this years ago. The UAPTF considered a range of information on UAP described in US military and ICE intelligence community IC reporting. But because the reporting lacked sufficient specificity, is that a word? Specificity, ultimately recognized that a unique tailored reporting process was required to provide sufficient data for analysis of UAP events. All right, that's just basically saying why they needed the UAPTF. As a result, the UAPTF concentrated its review on reports that occurred between 2004-2021, the majority of which are a result of this new tailored process to better capture UAP events through formalized reporting. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects given the majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors, including radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapons sequence, and visual observation. Exactly what John Brennan said. Yes. In a limited number of incidents, UAP reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics. That's the exact terminology used by David Fravor. These observations could be the result of sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misperception, and required additional rigorous analysis. Yeah, well, that's already happened through the UFO community, but anyway, Lou Elizondo and people like that have talked about it. Anyway, carry on. Oh, it's actually 11:30 in the evening. So, I always remember, actually, from AD after disclosure, they said it would be a Friday. The disclosure would happen on a Friday, and it would be after 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that the New York Stock Exchange could shut and wouldn't be able to reopen again. So there wouldn't be any sort of stock exchange anomalies and all crashes and booms and panic selling and buying and things like that until Monday morning. And that's true, although so it's actually around about 6 p.m. now, or just after 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So the timing is right. It's just there's only 9 pages here, so is this going to get more interesting? Let's crack on. There are probably multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations based on a range of appearances and behaviours described in the available reporting. Yeah, that's fair enough. There are different types. Some are indeed balloons and drones and things. No one disputes that. Very few people. But it's the hardcore of interesting cases that I'm interested in. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories. Right. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when UAPs are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential categories. And here's the categories. Zeta Reticuli, Mars, and no, I'm joking. Airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, US government or US industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other, quote-unquote, bin. The catch-all other, quote, bin, I think, is the Zeta Reticuli and Mars. UAP clearly pose a safety of flight issue. Yeah. Airliners have had to swerve to avoid crashing into them. Yeah. And may pose a challenge to US national security. Oh, right, yeah. Something going into your nuclear weapon silos and shining lights around. How would that not pose a challenge to your national security, America, or indeed any nation? Safety concerns primarily centre on aviators contending with an increasingly cluttered air domain. Yeah. UAP would also represent a national security challenge if they are foreign adversary collection platforms or provide evidence of a potential adversary has developed either a breakthrough or disruptive technology. Again, fair enough. That's how a military strategist would think. They would just, without necessarily saying, we want to shoot them out of the sky, they would simply calmly and collectively think, well, maybe we need to be, aware of a potential problem here and just develop a contingency plan for that. Consistent consolidation of reports from across the federal government, standardized reporting, increasing collection analysis, and a streamlined process for steering all such reports against a broad range of relevant US government data will allow for a more sophisticated analysis of UAP that's likely to deepen our understanding. That basically means just different departments and units talking to each other. Some of these steps are resource intensive and would require additional investment. Well, that would be, for example, if you decided to put a UFO observation platform in space, like on the International Space Station. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting they say that. They're essentially saying that they have to take special provision for the presence of UFOs. Can't wait to see what UFO Jesus has to say about all this. Available reporting largely inconclusive. Oh, right. Available reporting largely inconclusive. Limited data leaves most UAP unexplained. Yeah, well, limited data, or is that the data that's... They're not publishing all the data. This is page 4, by the way. We're almost halfway through already. Limited data and inconsistency in reporting are key challenges to evaluating UAP. No standardized reporting mechanism existed until the Navy established one in March 2019. What are you talking about? What was Project Blue Book? What was ATIP? Anyway, the Air Force subsequently adopted that mechanism in November 2020. I hear what they're talking about. Yeah, I actually reported on this at the time, that they had developed a reporting mechanism within the various forces. This wasn't a special government department. This was in the various services. This is before the Space Force. The UAPTF regularly heard anecdotally during its research about other observations that occurred, but which were never captured in formal or informal reporting by those observers. After carefully considering this information, the UAPTF focused on reports that involved UAP largely witnessed firsthand by military aviators. Yeah, that's Fravor and the others, yeah. And that were collected from systems we considered to be reliable. Would that be like the telemetry that Sean Cahill talks about? These reports describe incidents that occurred between 2004 and 2021, with the majority coming in the last 2 years as the new reporting mechanism became better known to the military aviation community. We were able to identify one reported UAP with high confidence. In that case, we identified the object as a large deflating balloon. Others remain unexplained. All right, I think there you're referring to the Batman balloon picture, unless this refers to an image that's not actually been published yet. But there was a picture that was taken on board a plane, a fighter. It shows what, to me, someone actually even identified the actual balloon. It's like got a picture of Batman on it, which seems like at the moment the most likely explanation for that, although I know that's been disputed. 144 reports originated from USG sources. Of those, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. Yeah, as John Brennan said. So it's 144 reports from USG sources, that's US government. 80, that's more than half, involved observation with multiple sensors. That's interesting, isn't it? That makes them more credible. Most reports described UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activities. So they would turn up during an operation, exercise or something. Now this next bit, I'll just show you. It's in a red box. Do you see that? This is UAP collection challenges. Why is it in this red box here? Okay. Go back to... That's okay. Sociocultural stigmas and sensor limitation remain obstacles to collecting data on UAP. Sociocultural stigmas. That, I think, is basically saying that it has an ambiance, an aura of lunacy. In other words, official ridicule and denial. They're talking about the Twining memo, the policy that was operating from 1947 to 2017. Although some technical challenges, such as how to appropriately stop splitting infinitives, to filter appropriately out radar clutter to ensure safety of flight for military and civilian aircraft, are long-standing in the aviation communities, while others are unique to the UAP problem set. Narratives from aviators in the operational community and analysts from the military and IC describe disparagement associated with observing UAP, reporting it or attempting to discuss it with colleagues. So this is the giggle factor. Basically, narratives from aviators. The people within the community have been reporting basically that if they try to talk about this, they get laughed at. So that hasn't changed much. Again, that kind of shift doesn't happen overnight. You can't undo 70 years of cultural inertia with one sweep of a pen. Although the effects of these stigmas have lessened as senior members of the scientific, policy, military and intelligence communities engage on the topic seriously in public, reputational risk may keep many observers silent, complicating scientific pursuit of the topic. The sensors mounted on US military platforms are typically designed to fulfill specific missions. As a result, those sensors are not generally suited for identifying UAP. Yeah, in other words, they don't have a Win Keach on every ship with his specialised sky watching equipment. Sensor vantage points and the number of sensors concurrently observing an object play substantial roles in distinguishing UAP from known objects and determining whether a UAP demonstrates breakthrough aerospace capabilities. That's common sense. That goes without saying. The better you can examine an object and study it visually or using electronics, the more likely you are to know what it might be and designate it as something truly unusual. Optical sensors have the benefit of providing some insight into relative size, shape and structure. Radio frequency sensors provide more accurate velocity and range information. Correct, that's right, the gun camera footage plus the telemetry plus the reports. Yeah, okay. Page 5. But some potential patterns do emerge. Although there was a wide variety of the reports, the data set is currently too limited to allow for detailed trend or pattern analysis. There was some clustering of UAP observations regarding shape, size and particularly propulsion. UAP sightings also tended to cluster around US training and testing grounds. That's true. Alien scientists pointed that out, yeah. But we assess that this may result from a collection bias as a result of focused attention, greater numbers of latest generation sensors operating in those areas, unit expectation and guidance to report anomalies. Yeah, also, as I said before, another factor could be that certain units have been more outspoken than others. There's certain other areas, there may be units where there's a culture of silence more than in others, so that could also be a factor. And a handful of UAP appear to demonstrate advanced technology. In 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Some UAP appear to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems process radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. I'm not sure exactly what that means. It may refer to them transmissions from the UAP. But that's a very important paragraph there on page 5 because it essentially states here that but it's late at night, but I want to get this done. I want to get this out because I know that everyone in America is going to be making these. So I want to get my video out and be one of the first. It's a bit of a competition. The UAPTF holds a small amount of data that appears to show UAP demonstrating acceleration or a degree of signature management. Signature, I don't know what that means. I know acceleration, of course, or a degree of signature management. Additional rigorous analysis are necessary by multiple teams or groups of technical experts to determine the nature and validity of these data. We are conducting further analysis to determine if breakthrough technologies were demonstrated. That's interesting. So they're leaving the door open for that possibility. Those two paragraphs, I think, on page 5 are very interesting. And it's 18 incidents described in 21 reports. Very interesting. That shows basically that... Again, it shows that the military pilots are very good witnesses. Right, there's a new section now. UAP probably lack a single explanation. That's true, yeah. It just means unidentified, could be anything, yeah. The UAP documented in this limited data set demonstrate an array of aerial behaviours, reinforcing the possibility that there are multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations. That's fair enough, I think, yeah. Even the ones which are obviously weird might not all be the same phenomenon. We may have generically categorized them as a single one. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potentially explanatory categories. And it basically gives the same list that you heard earlier, with the exception of the one instance where we determined with high confidence that the reported UAP was airborne clutter, specifically a deflating balloon. Yeah. We currently lack sufficient information in our data set to attribute incidents to specific explanations. That's another way of saying, apart from the deflating balloon, we don't know what they were. But let's have a look. Airborne clutter. Let's just have a look at definitions here. These objects include birds, balloons, recreational unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV, that's drones, or airborne debris like plastic bags that muddle a scene, and affect an operator's ability to identify true targets, such as enemy aircraft. So again, these are, I understand what that means. That just things that get in the way. Natural atmospheric phenomena. Natural atmospheric phenomena include ice crystals, moisture, and thermal fluctuations that may register on some infrared and radar systems. So that'll be like, yeah, because you get like different pressure, different air pressures and temperatures can affect radio waves. You get refraction and things like that, and reflection. Same as with underwater with sound. You have like deep sound channels, you have thermal layers and things like that, which affect sonar conditions for submarines and ships. USG, that's government, US government, or industry developmental programs. Some UAP observations could be attributable to developments and classified programs by US entities. We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. Yeah, that's because if they're classified in a compartment which is outside the remit of the UAPTF. So they say could be attributable. Now, there's reasons why I think that's not the case, which I've described before. If they are classified, they wouldn't be behaving like that. They'd be flying in no-fly zones like the secret airways with a floor of 60,000 feet created for the Area 51 secret aircraft. They wouldn't be buzzing their own, American fleets. That's very dangerous apart from anything else if there's a live fire capability, because someone could get killed. Next one, foreign adversary systems. Some UAP may be technology developed by China, Russia, another nation, or a non-governmental entity. Unless, like I said, unless we're like the equivalent of the New Guinea natives, it's unlikely. Unless there is literally a nation or non-governmental entity that has in complete secret overcoming all attempts at infiltration and espionage, developed to such an extent, it's basically, we're talking about Wakanda here. They developed to such an extent in complete secrecy that we interpret what they see as basically magic, to quote Arthur C. Clarke. And finally, this is the interesting bit, other. The other bin. They call it a bin. Although most UAP described in our dataset probably remain unidentified due to limited data or challenges to collection, processing, or analysis, we may acquire additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We would group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allowed us to better understand them. The UAPTF intends to focus additional analysis. This is hilarious. Let me read that again. Although most UAP probably remain unidentified due to limited data challenges collection, we may acquire additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We will group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allow us to better understand them. The UAPTF intends to focus additional analysis on the small number of cases where a UAP appear to display unusual flight characteristics or signature management. How many words were in that paragraph? How long did it take me to read it? It kind of could be summed up in one word, couldn't it? Aliens! Oh, that's an oversimplification, but that's kind of what they're hinting at. Again, they're skirting around it. They don't want to say it. They're just skirting around it and dressing it up in, well, every single assertion is fitted with an escape hatch, so they don't want to actually just say what it is. They want to say it could be this, but on every single, and they've come up with this long paragraph. I think there's 7 sentences here of gobbledygook to try and escape having to commit themselves to that. What I think is something quite obvious and certainly very common, quite persuasive, and I think common sense. Okay, here's a new section. UAP threaten flight safety and possibly national security. No shit, Sherlock. UAP pose a hazard to the safety of flight and could pose broader dangers if some instances represent sophisticated collection against US military activities by foreign government or demonstrate a breakthrough aerospace technology by a potential adversary. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, well, even if it's not, what if the potential adversary is not a foreign government? What if it's from somewhere a bit more exotic than that? Ongoing aerospace concerns. When aviators encounter safety hazards, they are required to report these concerns depending on the location, volume and behaviour of hazards during incursions on ranges. Pilots may cease their tests and or training and land their aircraft, which has a deterrent effect on reporting. Well, if they have to... Why would them landing their aircraft be a deterrent effect? They meet safety hazards, they report their concerns, depending, they may cease their tests and training. Oh, so you mean that they may be, for example, doing something very important, and they might have to abort that because of this, so that would have a deterrent effect on reporting? Do you mean they may carry on regardless within their operation and or their mission, despite the presence of the UAP? Is that what you mean? That needs clarification. Anyway, there's a little footnote here. The UAP has 11 reports of documented incidents in which pilots reported near misses with the UAP. Oh, I see. Right. Does that just military or does that include civilian? Does that include the airliners? Anyway, potential national security hazards. We currently lack data to indicate any UAP are part of a foreign collection program or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary. Well, that is true. They do. I mean, as I said earlier, Biden and good old Vlad, they were chatting away, or at least Vlad was chatting and Biden was dribbling. But, it wasn't even discussed. We continue to monitor evidence of such patterns, given the counterintelligence challenge they would pose, particularly as some UAPs have been detected near military facilities or by aircraft carrying the USG's most advanced sensor systems. Yeah, I myself took a photograph of a military facility. No, well, not of it, but it happened to be in the frame. And there was a UAP in the photo when it came out. Yeah. Here we go. This is a new section. Explaining UAP will require analytic collection and resource investment. So that means a lot of effort, in other words, a lot of money, a lot of effort. And it says here, standardise the reporting, consolidate the data, and deepen the analysis. In line with the provision of blah-de-blah-de-blah, this is just talking about Trump's directive. As the data set increases and the UAPTF's ability to employ data analytics to detect trends will also improve, the initial focus will be to employ artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms to cluster and reorganize similarities and patterns in features of the data points. As the database accumulates information from known aerial objects, such as weather balloons, high altitude or super pressure balloons, and wildlife, machine learning can add efficiency by pre-assessing UAP reports to see if those records match similar events already in the database. That basically says is they want to learn how to skywatch, and they want to teach their computers and things to do automatic scans with computers, basically teaching them to skywatch as well. That's basically what that says. There's a footnote here. The UAPTF has begun to develop interagency analytical and processing workflows to ensure both collection and analysis will be well informed and coordinated. Okay. That basically says that they all talk to each other and they swap information. And we go on now to page 7. The majority of UAP data is from the US Navy reporting, but efforts are underway to standardize incident reporting across US military services and other government agencies to ensure all relevant data is captured with respect to particular incidents and any US activities that might be relevant. That's fair enough. I mean, if you're dealing with different uniformed services, and there's another one now, the Space Force, and their Guardians, as they call them, You can't. You've got to have them like you've got to have some kind of way of dealing with these different reports, even if within the chain of command of these various outfits, they have their own practices. So that's understandable. Okay, here's some bullet points. Oh, it goes on to also say here the UAPTF is currently working to acquire additional reporting, including from the US Air Force and from the Federal Aviation Administration, that's airliners and things like that. Bullet point number 1. Although USAF data collection has been limited historically, the USAF began a 6-month pilot program in November 2020. That's a joke, by the way, pilot US Air Force. No, I'm kidding. To collect the most likely areas to encounter UAP. The most likely areas to encounter UAP. Is that geographical or something else? And is evaluating how to normalise future collection, reporting and analysis across the entire Air Force. Bullet point number 2. The FAA captures data related to UAP during the normal course of managing air traffic operations. Yeah, I mean, there's the guy Callahan who spoke at the Disclosure Project press conference. He was head of AAA accident investigations. And, definitely the civilians have to deal with this as much as the military do. Anything up in the air, including space as well, astronauts, this is a part of their life. The FAA generally ingests this data when pilots and other airspace users report unusual or unexpected events to the FAA's Air Traffic Organization. Bullet point number 3. In addition, the FAA continuously monitors its systems for anomalies, generating additional information that may be of use to the UAPTF. The FAA is able to isolate data of interest to the UAPTF and make it available. The FAA has a robust and effective outreach program that can help the UAPTF reach members of the aviation community to highlight the importance of reporting UAP. Expand collection. The UAPTF is looking for novel ways to increase collection of UAPT cluster areas when US forces are not present, as a way to baseline standard UAP activity and mitigate the collection bias in the dataset. Novel ways. All right. So does that mean asking passers-by to ask them how many? It's basically they want to get like a kind of control group to see if someone's trying to call me on Skype. Hang on. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Okay. Do they want to? Here we go. I think what they want to do is they want to create some kind of control to see if UAP are specifically taking an interest in the military. Looking for novel ways. Well, how do you do that? They're looking for novel ways to do it. I mean, I think what they might try and do is employ ufologists. That's one way they could do it. Go to MUFON or Bufora. One proposal is to use advanced algorithms to search historical data captured and stored by radars. The UAPTF also plans to update its current interagency UAP collection strategy in order to bring to bear relevant collection platforms and methods from the DoD and IC. Right. They could also just ask us, and they may be considering asking people like me. Increase investments in research and development. The UAPTF has indicated that additional funding for research and development could further the future study of the topics laid out in this report. Such investment should be guided by a UAP collection strategy, UAP R&D technical roadmap, and a UAP program plan. All right, that's just suggestions for future development of the projects. So they're just talking about how they're going to go forward. Okay, now we have program 8, page 8. Oh, it's an appendix. Oh, it's just a little bit here. It only covers half the page. Appendix A, key terms and... All right, it's just a glossary about UAPs, just what UAP stands for, things like that, if people didn't know. There's a footnote here. US Navy aviators define a range fouler as an activity or object that interrupts pre-planned training or other military activity in a military operating area restricted airspace. Yeah, a range fouler. So something that just gets in the way in a restricted airspace. Yeah, okay. Appendix B. This is page 9, the last page. Oh, I was hoping for a nice surprise at the end. Oh, well. Senate report accompanying the Intelligence Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2021. That's President Trump's directive. This is, let's have a look. Blah, 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 blah. I think this is just waffle. Okay. Is there anything here worth reporting on here? This is just a summary. Yeah, the Senate report specifically requested the report include. It's just a summary here. It mentions the FBI here. This is worth reporting. A detailed analysis of data of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which was derived from investigations and intrusion of UAP data over restricted UFO airspace. The FBI, right. Mulder and Scully, you're back on the job. Blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah. Oh, this is it. Identification of potential aerospace or other threats posed by the UAPs to national security. An assessment of whether this UAP activity may be attributed to one or more foreign adversaries. Okay, that means basically at some point they're going to have to say no. It's not a foreign adversary. What does that leave? We're back in what Bryce Sable call it stage 3. The rest is just like blah-de-blah. It's just the rest waffle. Okay, that's the end. That was it, ladies and gents. Okay, the report is out. Now, it's called itself the preliminary assessment. Does that mean we're going to get more? I don't know. It could be that this is just the first in a series of classification. However, that's really what I've just read pretty much is what I kind of expected, really, because as you know from previous videos, I do take the leak to the New York Times seriously. I think the New York Times has proven itself to be reliable in situations like this, and so it doesn't surprise me. But the leak that they gathered, their little scoop they gathered a couple of weeks ago is accurate. That's pretty much what was predicted. It's not aliens, but it might be aliens. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Now I'm going to upload this and then go to bed, and I think we'll have to continue this tomorrow during the live stream, 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, British Summer Time. I hope to see you there. In the meantime, thank you for watching Panwo TV. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.